Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So, hello dear students, welcome back to NPTEL online course on logistics and supply chain management. I am Dr. Vikas Thakur, Assistant Professor, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Kharagpur. So, today in this journey we will discuss today about some of the challenges which maybe as supply chain manager will face, right, in terms of uncertainties, right, which may be posed from the customer end where we are consuming the final product, or maybe it can come, these uncertainties can be from the supply end. So, complete supply chain perspective we will see what are the different challenges in terms of uncertain situations which we are put into, and then how we can deal with those some of the mitigating strategies we will discuss, right, and then we will talk about again the supply chain macro processes, keeping three stakeholders in mind. First is your supplier, then manufacturer, and then the customer. So, among the interaction, if we will talk about among these three stakeholders, we will see what are those macro processes we are handling when we are talking about the complete supply chain management as macro processes, right. So, if I will just randomly ask you about if you are supply chain manager and we are asking about when we will replenish the inventory, right. Maybe on the road you are having all the data stats with you that maybe 5 lots are coming from different suppliers, right. If I will ask you the exact location, maybe you can specify the exact location where are the goods right now, but if I will ask you the exact time when we will receive those goods, maybe that 100% accuracy may not be there, because still you can predict that maybe within that time we will receive the goods, but we are never 100% sure, right. Same is the case when I am talking about the quality of those goods being transported from point A to location B, right. So, then also because during that transportation or handling in the warehouses, maybe we might have damaged some of the products. If initially we shifted 1500 units, all 1500 units with the promised quality are reaching to the end customer, that again we are not sure, and then some kind of maybe disruption in terms of recently we have seen COVID-19 pandemic where the complete supply chain was disrupted because of the shutdown, right. So, then again the availability of the raw material, finished goods, factories were shut down, workers were moved from those location to their villages. So, that is again a kind of uncertain situation, right. So, how we can deal with these kind of uncertain situation, either happening from the customer side in terms of demand uncertainty, or happening from the supplier side in terms of supply uncertainty. So, whenever we are talking about uncertainty, these 2 points we need to keep in mind, because always in supply chain management the primary fight is to meet the demand with your supplies. Whenever there is uncertainty with the demand or uncertainty with the supply, so definitely challenges we are going to face. So, how the very first solution that comes to our mind is that let us keep some extra safe inventory in our retail outlet, right, so that any customer visits our showroom can get the inventory, right, can get the product. So, this is one way out, but yes, then how much inventory you will keep, but then maybe for tomorrow you are predicting the cyclone, and maybe for next 10 days or maybe 10 months there is no cyclone. So, then what you will do with that extra inventory? So, that also the chances of getting that inventory obsolete is also very important point. And then sometimes what is happening, you are because of that end season sales are there, and then you are selling the same inventory at the reduced price. So, these are some of the challenges when we are talking about the uncertain situations, right. And in supply chain, these uncertain situations can arise either from the supply end or from the customer and in terms of demand. Let us first talk about the supply chain uncertainty. Obviously, when we are not sure about the suppliers are one very prominent stakeholder of any supply chain, from where the supply is coming, right? So the very basic purpose of supply chain is to ensure the smooth supply of the raw materials to the production line, right? So that means when it is unpredictable situation or volatility is there, so that means you cannot predict the situation 100%, right? So anything can go wrong with the supplier, maybe with the one supplier or maybe with the multiple suppliers, right? So then how you will respond during that situation? Like we quoted the example of COVID-19 outbreak, right? So there can be natural disaster, there can be man-made disasters. So in nutshell, we can say these factors, demand fluctuations, logistics disruptions, labor shortage, geographical any event is occurring, right? So these are some of the factors which can interrupt your supply chain, smooth supply chain, right? So in terms of supply chain manager, our responsibility is how we can ensure the smooth supply of the raw material, right? Or whatever component we are using to produce that finished good, finished product, right? So let us we'll discuss 4 scenarios: supply uncertainty on the row side and demand uncertainty on the column side. See, one very ideal situation is when we have low supply uncertainty. That means you are pretty sure about the supply, that you can maintain the smooth supply. And then low demand uncertainty. That means you are into a market kind where maybe you are dealing with those products where you have the continuous supply, continuous demand, like we counted sugar industry, salt industry, steel industry, cement industry, those kind of goods where continuous supply is there. So in that case, if this is the kind of industry, what is the primary focus of any supply chain is to be efficient, because there is nothing much you can do with the product in terms of innovation, right? Cement industry will provide all same packet size, right, and same quality, almost same quality, and it is very difficult as a maybe customer, you cannot analyze the quality, right? So then what you will do with in terms of USP, your USP lies majorly how efficient you are while you are pricing your product, right? So pricing is very, very important in this situation, first scenario. Second scenario, where we have still stable supply, but we are not sure about the demand. High demand uncertainty, right? In terms of if you are coming with the new mobile phones, right? So only thing, component are same. Sometimes you are adding some new features, adding some new app software. So that way you are innovative in that way, right? But in that case, your supply chain should be very, very responsive. Quickly you should respond to the customer demand that can come from anywhere, right? So high demand uncertainty from particular market, maybe demand is coming, and for next 10 days there is no demand from the same market, and some other location we are getting high demand, right? So in that case, how supply chain can respond very quickly. The third scenario, this is the second scenario. Third scenario is where we have high supply uncertainty, but demand is still very stable, right? But supply we are not sure. So in that case, what we can do, like we talk about semiconductors. In these days, you might have seen the demand for the automobile industry is almost saturated with all the players, right? They are, maybe some fluctuations are there, but still they can figure out how much is the demand. But if you talk about the recent news was there, and now Indian government also started establishing semiconductor 2 or 3 locations they have identified where they are planning to set up the semiconductor plants, right? So in that case, because the news I was talking about, more than 50 lakh units were with the manufacturers, Maruti, Hyundai, Toyota, all those manufacturers, but they were not able to sell because of the shortage in the chip, right? So then in that case, what you can do, risk hedging may be the best option for managing your supply chain, where you can pool your resources. If same industries, maybe many players are there, they can pool their resources to meet that kind of saturated demand. And last, fourth case is where your supply is very uncertain, your demand is very uncertain, This is the biggest challenge when you are not sure about anything, right? Then the agile supply chain will help. How flexible you are with your supply chain. If demand is suddenly coming from one end, how you can meet with the minimum consumption of the resources, because meeting demand requires supplies, right? But we are not sure about the supplies as well. So then those kind of industries we have to come up with your agile supply chain. Let's talk about healthcare supply chain. Maybe the emergency services you are providing with the ambulance, maybe you are providing the different blood groups, right? And then supply is also uncertain in that case, whether you are maintaining all the blood groups or not. And then demand, when you need, how many bottles units you need, right? That also is very, very uncertain. So in that kind of situation, in healthcare supply chain is usually we talk about emergency supply chain, or you can talk about not only healthcare supply chain, disaster supply chain, disaster relief operations, from where first thing is we need to locate how many people are affected. Then we need to ensure the minimum supplies with the medicines. Next minimum supply, how they can survive for maybe 8 or 10 days. Then the rescue operation will happen. So we need to supply them the medicines and the bread packets and all that they can survive, right? So these are 4 different scenarios we will discuss when we will discuss about the uncertainty throughout your supply chain, right? Talking about demand uncertainty refers to unpredictability and variability coming from the customer side. So sometimes you are keeping that much stock, you stocked in 2020, you forgot to use that, and still that inventory is with you, but it's not coming with the deadline or maybe expiry date. So you are using somewhere in 2050, but that inventory is now you are counting that it is consumed, but it is still with the customer. That can also happen, right? If those kind of products are there. So, but demand variability usually coming from the customer side, and why it is happening? Because of market trend. Suddenly if there is change in the market trend, obviously customer focus will shift to some other alternatives. Consumer behavior is also very unpredictable. Sometimes you are going, maybe you are feeling that next 2-3 months you will be very busy. Let us stock all the grocery items in the house so that next 2-3 months I will not get the time to visit the retail shop, right? So that way you are maintaining extra stock. But usually you are not buying for more than 8 or 10 days or 15 days inventory. So then your behavior in that way can be very complex to predict. Economic conditions. So suddenly if there is a recession, buying power, purchasing power of the customer will reduce. So that also we need to take care. When during COVID only that happened, that most of the automobile industry, they faced a huge crisis in terms of managing the demand because of the very low demand, right? And then external events are always there which can affect your demand, right? Implied demand uncertainty is different from the demand uncertainty, where we are talking about the special thing, the special promise we are meeting and we are promising to our customer, right? Where you are providing the emergency services. Let us talk about we need ambulance services, right? I'm having one taxi, right? So maybe first scenario is I'm using it as maybe taxi, right? Or second is I'm using it as ambulance, right? So then using taxi, still the uncertainty is there. Maybe for whole day you are not having even single ride, and then maybe for the next 12 hours you are getting multiple rides, right? So how you will manage as long as you are having only single taxi, right? How you cannot manage? Maybe you can hedge with the other hedging supply chain you can go for, where you can pool the resources, you can get the taxis from your other players in the market, and then this is how you can meet the customer demand. But let's talk about the second scenario, where we are talking about the ambulance, where this uncertainty is at the highest level, and because we are promising services during emergency only, when we will call ambulance, when we don't want to wait even for 5 minutes. But in case of taxi, you can wait for 1 hour, right? You can wait for half an hour. If you are planning for long journey, so you can wait, you have called taxi person and then he took 30 minutes extra, then you took maybe 15-20 minutes extra to board on taxi and all those things, right? So that in that way, it is not that kind of emergency services. But implied demand uncertainty, when you are promising, you are actually referring to that portion of the demand which is, very, very uncertain and kind of emergency services. So if talking about that, order frequency is also not sure, lead time is very less, quickly you need to respond, fire services, right? So that people will get the minimum time, right, to deliver, provide the fire services. And then services level also expected are, in terms of services level, different varied services level are expected from the customer. So this is very important in terms of implied demand uncertainty. So talking about emergency orders and long lead time. So this, if long lead time is there, we'll talk about demand uncertainty. If your emergency orders are there, we'll talk about your this implied demand uncertainty. So this is the basic difference, because we have very short time to respond to that query, to respond to that, the demand coming from the market, right? But in case of the other supply chain where we have long lead time, still we can take some time to respond. Like if you are placing order with the Zomato, right? Even they are promising fast delivery, but they have 30-45 minutes, 1 hour sometimes, right? They can delay those services. Bad weather condition, they can reflect, and then they can ask the customer to wait for maybe little longer. Hardly matters. But in case of emergency services, disaster management, supply chain, you have to be very quick to provide those emergency services. So impact of services level, as the services level will increase, implied demand uncertainty will replicate in the same way, will increase like anything. So that also you need to see, if you are providing the services through different channels, right? So again the implied demand certainty will increase, because now it's not only you need to cater to the demand coming from one channel. If you are selling tickets, if your airline industry selling ticket from through your maybe your own website, through Make My Trip, through GoIbibo, through Ixigo, through IRCTC, all those different channels are there. So in that way, implied demand uncertainty will be higher. So let's talk about the supply uncertainty. Already we introduced a little bit about how it can be unpredictable during your when we are interacting with the suppliers, right? So what can be the factors? Capability of the supply chain and life cycle position, very important when we are talking in terms of supply uncertainty. Let's talk about the capability of the supply chain. Capability, in layman terms, capability, how capable your supply chain is to meet all the demand coming from the customer end. Whether it is variability is there in the demand, whether quality level expected is different from different customers. Some are looking for superior quality, some are looking for maybe the superior pricing policy, some are looking for maybe variety. So how your supply chain is capable enough to meet all those different kind of demands coming from the customer with the how you can meet that? First is your production process, second is your yield, quality yield. So how quickly your production process will respond to change in the market demand, and how quickly you are shifting from model 1 to model 2. Let's say now there is high demand for model 2, you will stop model 1, model 3, model 4, and you will suddenly change over to the model 2 because there is more demand coming for that particular model, right? Then quality yields, how efficiently, effectively you are converting the raw material into the finished one, right? And ensuring the final quality. So once you will stabilize in that market, standardize your production process, your quality will improve automatically. But if you are coming initially with new product design, new process design, then in that case it will take little time to standardize that process. So that's why we always talk about in production operation management, it is very, very important to reach that standardization of the production process as early as possible, so that the rejection process rejection can be reduced, raw material rejection can be reduced in that terms. Life cycle life cycle position of the product. See, so life cycle, everyone knows that this is the life cycle, right, where we are talking about the introduction stage, we are talking about here the growth stage, here we are talking about the maturity, and then finally our product declines. So just quickly I will relate this life cycle position and how it is putting uncertain situation through the supply chain. See, this introduction stage, if I will characterize, that means you are very uncertain, not only with demand but as well as your supply, right? So because just now you introduce the new product, you are not sure about the demand, from which market demand will come, and then because you are still standardizing, in the process of standardizing your raw material components, your process design, so your supply is also not sure, and you are also not sure how many vendors you need to develop, whether that particular product will be success or failure. So then you cannot suddenly go for multiple vendors, right? So in that way it is very uncertain. So obviously in that case you have to be very responsive in your supply chain. Why I am saying responsive? When you will go somewhere here, you should be efficient, cost efficient. But when you are at the introduction stage, you need to be responsive. That means if demand is coming from anywhere, you need to respond quickly, right? So that means cost will be little higher in terms of we are not sure about the demand, in terms of we are not sure about the supplies, that maximum inventory we are maintaining, standardization is not done of the process. So that means cost of production, productivity will be low. When productivity will be low, that means cost of production will be higher. So that means the pricing will be little higher. Okay, so because you need to recover the R&D cost as well, so that you need to consider, because as soon as you will go into the growth stage, other players will come into picture, competition will be there. In that case you need to lower down the cost, you need to lower down the price as well, right? So till this point you need to ensure that you have recovered all the R&D cost, including the profit margin as well, that also you need to ensure, right? And once you will go into maturity stage, now your processes are standardized, demand is in that way saturated, supply is saturated, you can forecast, you can predict how much customer share is there. If you are maintaining somewhere around 15 to 17% customer share, so you see fluctuation maybe 1 to 2%, right? So that much you are sure about the supply. So in that way you can be efficient. So when you are going to maturity stage, you need to be efficient, you need to be more cost efficient, and quality also you need to promise. Implied demand uncertainty already I discussed. If there is implied demand uncertainty, so that effect will be replicated in the supply as well. How many ambulances are required? Maybe at the same time then 3 calls are coming, all cases are equally important. So to whom you will address the first? So that will pose extra challenge for this. So how we can counter supply chain uncertainty? First thing is we need to diversify the suppliers. That means multiple suppliers, different geographical location. Already in one session I discussed about single supplier versus multiple supplier. If anything goes wrong in that geographical location, any disaster like cloud bursting or flood is coming, earthquake is there, so that means your supply chain interrupted, right? So then you need to locate different locations, right? Sometimes what is happening, you are locating your supply, your partner overseas as well. When you are going overseas, maybe something overseas is required, maybe you are getting cheaper product with a lesser cost, and then maybe quality is another one, maybe technology is another one, quality level is high, technology is another factor you are buying from the overseas player, right? So but this is long supply chain. So but you can't replace all the suppliers with the overseas player. What if that overseas supply chain interrupted, right? So maybe one or two local vendors I will maintain who can ensure the smooth supply during that time. But when I'm sure about the supply and demand and that much big lot is required, obviously I'll go overseas from where I can negotiate the cost, quality and technology and performance, all those things. Enhance visibility. If you are real-time data is provided by tracking your inventory, whatever activity you are performing at different stages of that supply chain, right? Then you can in that way reduce the uncertainty. Why uncertainty is there in the supply chain? Because we don't have the full information. Either we are dealing with the partial information, vague information, uncertain information, right? If that can be, let's say, how we are tracking right now is that this much demand is coming from the customer, okay, 50 units. Let us place the order for 55 units, right? Then let us manufacture maybe 60 units. Let us place the order with the supplier for 70 units. So this is how your demand is still 50, but you are placing order for 70 units. How we can electronically we can change that so that visibility can be maintained. Build flexibility, so that we need to ensure by storing the inventory, and agile manufacturing practices fostering collaboration. So this agile manufacturing can only happen if I am asking my supplier quickly supply 5 units, he is ready to supply 5 units. Now I need 50 units, he is ready to supply 50 units. Now change over to second model, he is ready to change over to the second model. So that collaboration with the supplier is required, and that is only when you can strengthen the relationship with the stakeholders. Communication, trust and collaboration. It's not only the problem with the manufacturer, the seller. It's problem if something uncertain situation is there, you need to deal with that uncertain situation throughout the network, suppliers, distributor, your manufacturer, warehouse, all those agents need to work in line, right? And then implement risk management practices. To manage risk, first is you need to assess the risk. Then scenario planning, maybe multiple alternatives you will see what are the different scenarios. If we'll go with route A, what can happen? If we'll go with route B, C, D, then what are the different alternatives and what will be the different outcomes, and then we can find out the chances of happening something, right? Probability theory, right? We can find out that. So then invest in resilience, how we need to invest more and more in to develop that robust infrastructure so that we can come up with the backup inventory, backup location, backup manufacturing, so that can be supported. Monitor and adapt, we need to monitor the supply chain performance regularly with the changing dynamic, that market scenario, right? And we need to tap the external factors as well, which can come and play important role, right? Already we talked about, we can conclude this, that improve visibility and communication throughout the supply chain, and this will only happen when we are sharing the data information with all the stakeholders, right? So improved supply chain visibility will lead to agility. So quickly you can respond to, proactively you can respond to whatever uncertainty is coming, risk is coming from the market, so that you can tap quickly. So just before proceeding further, I'll show you one video where you can see how these intelligent supply chains, what are the expectations in terms of when we are talking about the intelligent supply chains. So here I have included some video links. You guys can just quickly go through these videos. So you can see the only way to deal with this kind of supply chain uncertainty is transparency and visibility throughout the supply chain, so that quickly you can share the information with all the stakeholders, and accordingly that quick action can be taken. So just uncertainty versus risk. Risk is something that can be estimated. If you are going this way, you can be sure that maybe there is 15% risk. If you are going to this way, maybe 25% risk. If you are going to this way, maybe 10% risk. But if this risk is 25%, maybe the returns are maybe 35%. If risk is 15%, maybe returns are only 20%. So that way you can find out, right? So risk of adopting a particular action, and then you can find. Uncertainty is something that the probability you cannot find out, right? This is clearly uncertain situation which can happen, which cannot happen, right? So, and these are some of the events, like we are talking about the disaster events, right? So who can predict that this is going to be the depth of that particular disaster? Still we can predict in that way that cyclone is coming, low pressure zone, and that all we have environmental tracking parameters where we are predicting up to some extent, right? So but how much it is going to interrupt your supply chain is altogether another story, right? So talking about supply chain uncertainty and risk, either we are dealing with the information uncertainty, logistics related, customer related, or environment related uncertainty and risk. So logistics related uncertainty simply means when you are delivering the product from one end to other end. So anything can go. So that means that will, if anything is interrupting your physical flow of the goods within the supply chain. So that means that can delay your delivery time. Transport network management will be into picture, storage issues will be there, you will not be having enough inventory, carrier strength, freight, transportation, operation, all will be affected, right? If you are not having the exact information related to your logistics, right? Or any uncertainty is there with the logistics, right? And then these uncertainties may impact your efficiency and effectiveness of the overall logistics process. You are not sure about how much you need to warehouse, how much you need to transport, how much you need to go for the final delivery. So those kind of things you are not sure, right? So uncertainties are on that side. Information uncertainty, this is a kind of uncertainty because this will lead to all other uncertainty. If any lack is there in the information delivery, that means your whole network is disturbed, right? If you are not getting proper demand function, right? How it is going to behave for the next 15 days, how you will plan your manufacturing cycle, how you will plan your procurement cycle, how much inventory you will store in the storage house, right? So that information accuracy, availability and timely processing is very much required. These are some of the features when we are talking about the information uncertainty. Customer related uncertainty is always there. How many customers are visiting your retail outlet? What is the footfall? How many are converted? Maybe somewhere you can say maybe on an average maybe 50% or 60% you are converting. But then this is something consumer behavior is very typical to predict. Reputation risk, if negative brand image is associated or some negative experiences are there, so then also you need to tap that, right? Or customers is having that reputation, right? So receivable risk, if you are giving something on credit, so whether you are going to receive that or not, that is also kind of risk. Then forecasting errors, demand delays to customer, those all can come from the customer end, right? Because sometimes the customer are just roaming around the market and buying nothing. Sometimes they are not coming with the mind that they will buy something and buy so many stuff in the end, right? So that those things are very unpredictable. Environment uncertainty in terms of all the dimension, political, economic, social, technological, environmental, global factors, whatever there, right? Any global event, Russia-Ukraine war, suddenly your crude oil prices are going up. Suddenly transportation industry is hit badly. So cost of shipping the product will go like anything, or any other product coming from that region will affect adversely. Any global event happens, so and then political, if there is changeover, so you can see how the market will react, right? So those all market sentiments are attached with the, if there is change in the government, right? How we can mitigate these supply chain uncertainty, some of the measures we can take, right? Regular plan generation. Planning is something is not permanent, right? If you are looking for this is permanent plan, that cannot happen. So you need to generate frequent plan. Maybe today whatever I am planning, tomorrow it may go obsolete, right? So maybe some other factors which we yesterday we did not considered and today are very important, right? So in that way you need to go with very frequent plans. You need to evaluate again the plans with the changing market scenario, and then when you are saying that, that means that if you are still working with the manual kind of planning, so it will not work, right? So automatically you need to automate your warehouses, inventory, your stock, your manufacturing, so that immediately information can be shared, and if that is happening, you can reduce the inventory cost by 37%, because continuously you are coming up with the changing environment you are modeling in your equation, right? Consistency in planning. Now see, if today I am saying I am a responsive supply chain and something goes wrong in the environment, and then now I am saying that I want to compete on cost, how it can happen? If Rolex suddenly start advertising the cheaper product watches they are providing, who will believe in that? And then the first thing will come in our mind, those who are bearing the Rolex, and then whether they are obviously they will be compromising with the quality, that's why they are reducing. So that is something that consistency in planning should go throughout the supply chain, right? So that standardization, today you are responsive, tomorrow you should be responsive. That is the main thread, connecting all the stakeholders. So integration of additional data source, it's not only one channel through your marketing channel or distribution or sale you are getting the data. How you can track the pattern through different social media websites, right? That is another source. How customers are rating those products on different websites, those also can be a source of for your renovating the product, supplying the product to the market. So that you need to align your resources with the demand, whatever it is coming, and accordingly you need to change your production plans as well. Enhanced visibility across the supply chain is again now bullwhip effect. So this I was talking about, like let's say this is how the information gets amplified over the stages. Here the customer is placing order for 50 products with the retailer. Retailer is placing another, maybe with keeping in mind, maybe there may be increase in the demand, so he is placing order 75 with the manufacturer. Then again manufacturer is there, and then your raw material supplier is there. So raw material manufacturer is placing for safer side maybe 110 products, components. So this is, see how this information gets amplified over multiple stages. How you can reduce that with maybe electronic data interchanges there, so quickly you can share the exact information. If 50 is there, you need to acquire the material as per 50. Why to keep that extra, more than double inventory? Okay, so that can only happen when you are having holistic view and performance tracking KPIs, where you have the not only KPIs for one manufacturer or distributor or warehousing, right? You should have keep KPIs aligned with all the stakeholders, and one holistic approach, system approach should be adopted for this. So talking about the last concept related to this is supply chain macro processes. We'll quickly see whatever we are doing with the supplier, known as supplier relationship management, internal supply chain from raw material to finished goods. Here raw material is coming, whatever we are doing within our manufacturing unit is internal supply chain management, and how we are managing with the customer is customer relationship management, right? So what is happening with the supplier? We are sourcing the supplier, we are negotiating them on the quantity, quality, price, right? And then we are buying that. Buying also not only single lot, we'll see in 1 month how many lots we'll buy, what will be the quantity in each lot, and then throughout the year how many lots we are going to buy. So in that way, when you are saying that these are our suppliers, you are sharing your recipe with the suppliers, only then they will manufacture the components for you, right? So design collaboration is there, and obviously supply is there because you are getting the supply. Once you will get the supply within your manufacturing unit, how you will convert that raw material into finished one? You will store your raw material, then strategic planning will be there. Maybe you have 3 different production lines, right? One production line A and B model you are running, second production line C, D, E, and then maybe so many other different models you are running on the third production line. So strategic planning, demand planning will come into picture. How many units of D today will manufacture? How many units of B today will manufacture? So when we will shift from A to B, how quickly we will shift that? So internal planning, how we are going to fulfill the order. So all supply order you need to match with the internal supply chain management. We discussed about the first 3 main streams of supply chain. Here you can say the first stream, this is the second stream, this is the third stream which is interacting with the final customer. Now you need to market. First you need to identify the demands, the expectation from the customer. Only then you can go for designing of the product, designing of the process, how you will convert raw material into finished one. Then pricing, how much customer is willing to pay. Is there really that problem is really that important for the customer that he is ready to pay this much, right? Then you will sell, and once you will sell, you will provide after sale services, right? You will installation related services, any returns are happening or any damages are happening, or maybe you are providing the spare parts to maintain the product maybe over 20 years, right? So, okay, so these are some of the things which are related to customer relationship management, right? So these three macro processes within the supply chain we can see, and whenever there is any uncertainty among any of this, maybe we figured the market demand in a wrong way, will plan, strategic planning will be in wrong way, and will source the wrong component, right? So we need to align all these macro processes so that we can maintain the smooth supply of all these materials. Already we discussed in detail, right? So uncertainty basically coming from these four sources, okay? These four sources you need to tap and need to maintain the, but still that cannot be 100% accurate information, but still you can somewhere you can go for that. And how you can mitigate that uncertainty, you need to collaborate with the suppliers, close a relationship, you need to enhance the visibility and relationship. We have seen that video that throughout that supply chain, if visibility is there, you can track the operations, right? And your supply chain should be flexible, agile, quickly you are responding, and you are responding for anything, right? You ask me any product, I'll provide you any product, right? And then you need to continuously monitor your KPIs, your risks, and then you need to develop the resilient supply chain. If anything goes wrong, even then your supply chain is standing there, right? So that's all. These are some of the references. So thank you very much.